Okay, very good morning. Today we have some facts regarding the Korean War. Before that, please subscribe, share the video, and comment, and also like the video. Thank you. First of all, regarding the Korean War, it was a war as called by the American as a forgotten war. Since it was not an important war for them, is because the American consider the European as their motherland, and as well as the American consider the European as a motherland compared to the East Asia. As you know, the Japanese uh, are building their military and their political power under the Meiji Emperor by 1898. The Japanese military getting strong and stronger by his administration by he direct a lot of concurrence along the Asian countries. That means the Japanese emperor ordered the Japanese soldiers to control more or getting more empire in Asia countries. Seen in 1900 or 1900, the Japanese were launched a few military campaign against the several Asian countries. Those countries are the Chinese or China, Korea. After the uh, beginning of the First World War, 1945, the South Asian countries such as Malaysia, or they call it as a uh, British colony or Malaya, as well as the Dutch colonies like Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Burmese, India, and so on. The Japan became a rising star after the Meiji Emperor modernized the Japanese military to its full power. First of all, they formed their own unit to make their country greater and their military getting bigger and stronger. Okay, we will come back to the Korean War. As we know, the Korea is considered as a two kind of Korea. The first is North Korea. Now is called by as a North Korea or Socialist Republic of People Korea and South Korea. Okay, the North Korea is considered as a communist nation or socialist nation, and the South Korea is considered as a democratic country. Okay, how we know that the both Korea became separated, and what are the causes make them separate from the unification and become a one Korea? Okay, or Korean Peninsula. There are the several reasons, and also the several powerful nation, who is involved in the separation or struggle for the independence of the Korea. First of all, we must look back to the Cold War era. Even before Cold War, there's a country whose control over the Korea, which is we are considered as a Japan. Japan is take control of the Korea by their colonization on 1910 onwards to make it is a Korea as a its colony country for the Japan. When the colonization of the Japanese in Korea, the Korean Peninsula people suffered in terms of economy, social life, and also other part of life. So, as we know, the Japanese is a one of the cruel regime which is torture the people and also make the people suffer in terms of everyday life. Japanese was wiped out by the American after the Japan was bombed with the two atomic bomb in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. This was a big surprise for the Japan after a surrender to the Allied forces. After that, there's a era we call it as a Cold War, which is in between the American as a capitalist lead, and another part is Soviet Union as a socialist or communism. Okay, when it comes to the Cold War, the both countries become a most dominant factor, which is uh, underlying the Korean history. First of all, the American under the Truman don't want the Korea fall into the communist regime, as well as the Chinese as a communist. So what they call it as a Korea is our second consideration, so that the Soviet or neither the Chinese should not take control over the Korea. So what they did is they tried to help the Korean people to secure the Korea from the communist influence. So there's a several uprising among the Labour Party in Korea, especially in North Korea, which is caused the uprising among them, and they make certain riot to gain control over the whole Korean peninsula. But after the Soviet involvement with together with China to oust the American involvement or capitalist involvement, they have been involved indirectly. Okay, except China, the Soviet involved indirectly in certain agreement so that they can help the Korean or North Korean Republic of Korean Army to take control of the whole Korean peninsula. So what happened is even Chinese were not interfere directly. So in fear of the situation, American is a consider bring the issue to the United Nations Security Council. So they will discuss this thing, and then the Soviet veto any American involvement militarily in Korea Peninsula. So even though the veto by the Soviet is considered as by a big power to stop the American involvement, it doesn't stop American from involved. And then from the 1940, the American began to interfere in Korea by form a puppet regime. They call it as a reigning, segment reigning. The man who is a pro-American become a administrator or leader for the South Korea. And a part of the North Korea was controlled by the Kim Il Sung, is a Soviet uh, communist government. Both they have their own agenda, so that neither communist or capitalist should not cross the line, which is 38 parallel, which is decided by the United States and the Soviet Union, so that either both party did not cross the line, which is separating the Korea Peninsula to the two Korea, as well as the North Korea and the South Korea. So it's a situation is getting worse when the moment in several incidents to lead to the military involvement by the both side. The first of all is the moment the United Nations gathered together with the American allies like Australia, New Zealand, even Malaya, British, and so on, they want to stop the Soviet back North Korea to invade the South Korea, and they united the Korean Peninsula as a social republic of Korean people. They don't like the Soviet people. So what they have done is American together with the Allied and the United Nations Army started to invade and assist the South Korean army to make sure that the North Korean army did not invade the South Korea. So the incident is considered as a part of an agenda for saying the Japanese should not fall to the communist regime. So the American already decide and consider several factors that can affect the other countries in the Pacific nation like Japan, okay, and Southeast Asia countries. So the American started to war with the North Korean army. Even Soviets sent them the sophisticated tank and jet to defeat the American. In several battleground, American troops together with the Allied forces was defeated by the North Army, Republic of Korean Army. So what happened is, even after that, the incident, Chinese president or the chairman Mao Zedong as considering as to help the North Korean by sending troops. They train by in China, which is called as a voluntary army to help the North Korean to fight against the American. Pomunjum is the in the line of parallel of 38 was the uh, location where determine the both party to determine situation. So what happened is, even though several times the American lead allies crossed the 38 parallel and try to control the whole Korea, but the situation does not favor them. So what happened is, both parties and finally agreed on 1953, so that the Korea were divided to uh, two nations as North Korea and South Korea till now. So if you like the video, please share, comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you very much.